In a sunlit room at Boston General Hospital, Amy Wilson was reviewing a patient's chart. Her shoulder-length brown hair tucked behind her ears, she diligently wrote clinical notes in her modest scrubs. Suddenly, her phone vibrated with an incoming call from her sister Caitlin. Amy sighed deeply, hesitating to answer. "Amy. I need $50,000 right now." Her sister's voice was urgent. Amy could almost picture her wild blonde hair and designer clothes through her voice alone. This was the third emergency money request this month. "Caitlin, what is it this time?" Amy's voice carried exhaustion. At 32, she had built a career earning $320,000 annually, but most of it went to supporting her sister. "It's just temporary. I'll pay you back next month for sure." How many times had Amy heard those words? The total debt had already exceeded $300,000. Amy gazed out the consultation room window. In the hospital garden was a flower bed she tended during breaks, her only luxury in a modest life. She often spent peaceful moments there on holidays, reading. Meanwhile, her sister lived in a high-rise apartment in Beacon Hill, dressed in luxury brands. Looking back, the rift between the sisters began in childhood. When 10-year-old Amy won the math Olympiad, 7-year-old Caitlin broke down crying at the awards ceremony. Their mother's harsh scolding in front of gathered relatives, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" likely left deep wounds in Caitlin's young heart. The sisters' lives continued to diverge. At 15, Amy received the state's Outstanding Student Award, while 12-year-old Caitlin struggled with poor grades and attended remedial classes. In family photos, Caitlin deliberately stood at the edge, sometimes refusing to be in them altogether. In college, Amy graduated top of her class at Harvard Medical School. Professors praised her dedication as she studied late into the night at the library. In contrast, Caitlin repeated 2 years at State University. Witnessing their parents' disappointment, she gradually became self-destructive. 5 years ago, when their parents died suddenly in a car accident, each sister inherited $500,000. Amy immediately used the entire amount to pay off her sister's accumulated student loans. Caitlin, however, began living extravagantly and exhausted her inheritance within a year. "All right. I'll transfer it, but this is the last time," Amy said, remembering how many times she'd declared something the last time. It started with covering college tuition, then repeated debt payments, living expenses, and now wedding costs. Her sister demanded support as if entitled to it, never once expressing gratitude. When the transfer completion notification appeared on her phone, Caitlin immediately sent back a heart emoji. However, hours later, Amy would see her sister's social media post, "My doctor's sister makes a living off others' misfortunes. She's a family disgrace." The post had already received dozens of likes. Amy quietly placed her smartphone on the desk and turned back to the patient charts. She gripped her pen tightly, suppressing her emotions. From her white coat pocket peeked an invitation to the wedding at the Ritz-Carlton, bearing the luxury hotel's logo. Spring sunlight streamed into the grand ballroom of the Boston Ritz-Carlton. While 200 guests gathered in their finest attire, Amy was in a cramped staff room, putting on a black uniform dress. Under the fluorescent lights, the cheap fabric stood out starkly. A staff guidelines poster on the wall with "Always Smile" seemed ironically cruel. "The size doesn't seem to fit you," Caitlin said with a smirk, her pure white wedding dress dazzling. But it suits you. Unlike that prestigious doctor's white coat. Remember? When you worked at that family restaurant during college? You wore something just like this. The uniform was clearly too small. The shoulders were tight, the length too short. The bodice was constricting, and the skirt rode up unnaturally with each step. The intent was obvious. Amy lowered her eyes from her reflection in the mirror. The redness creeping up her neck betrayed her humiliation. It's been a while since you worked as a waitress, hasn't it? But this is where you truly belong, Caitlin said, elegantly lifting her expensive wedding dress skirt. The tiara's jewels sparkled. Don't talk to the guests. And please handle the dishes too. Oh, and when you leave the back area, always use the staff corridor. Don't use the guest hallways. Someone like you shouldn't be seen by our important guests. In the cramped service area, there was a single cheap folding chair with Amy's belongings in a paper bag. From the next room came the laughter of glamorous bridesmaids. She thought she recognized voices of former classmates among them. Amy nodded silently. Her sister's wedding. A grand ceremony with Robert Chambers, a brilliant J.P. Morgan investment banker. And here she was, working as a server. As she climbed the hotel's service stairs, she wondered what their parents would say if they could see this day. In the lavishly decorated venue, a champagne tower gleamed elegantly as a live orchestra played. Crystal chandeliers sparkled in the spring sunlight, and the finest china graced the tables. Upper-class guests savored the premium full-course meal featuring foie gras and caviar. Each carefully placed flower seemed to mock her. Amy quietly poured wine and served dishes. Her feet ached from hours of standing in unfamiliar short heels. The chef yelled at her, and senior servers made snide remarks. She was repeatedly asked, "Why is someone like you working here?" Still, Amy maintained an expressionless face. Between serving duties, she searched for her own seat. The invitation had surely listed her name on the seating chart. But nowhere could she find a place card reading Amy Wilson. Later, she discovered that her place had been marked temporary staff. "Ladies and gentlemen," Caitlin's voice suddenly rang out through the microphone. She stood in the center of the room, bathed in spotlight. Her pure white dress shimmered in the light, giving her an almost angelic appearance. "Thank you all for coming today. Nothing makes me happier than being surrounded by my true family and friends on this special day." A moment's pause. Amy felt fear. She could tell her sister was searching for her, and the emotion in those eyes was pure hatred. "By the way, I'd like to introduce someone to you all. Please look at that server pouring wine." Amy's hands trembled. Deep red wine spilled onto the white tablecloth. Guests frowned. The stained fabric seemed to symbolize the wounds in her heart. "Actually, she's my sister." "Yes, surprising, isn't it? She's supposed to be a doctor, but here she is doing this kind of work. She's truly our family's shame. But this is where she belongs. Everyone, please enjoy watching her work." Loud laughter echoed through the venue. Guests wore expressions of confusion as whispers spread among the wealthy crowd. At the doctor's table, Amy's colleagues stood up in shock. Society ladies whispered behind their fans. Some even started taking photos. Her heart raced. Breathing became difficult. Cold sweat ran down her neck. Amy gently set down the wine bottle and began walking toward the staff exit. She felt hundreds of eyes on her back. Each step felt like an eternity. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she showed them to no one. She just wanted to escape this place quickly. As she reached for the uniform's buttons, a sudden voice rang out across the venue. It was filled with anger and determination. Wait. It was Robert, the groom. The venue fell silent. Caitlin's smile vanished as she stood frozen. The orchestra stopped playing, and hands holding champagne glasses froze midair. Robert strode purposefully to the microphone with a thick folder in his hand. His expression showed a severity never seen before. With all eyes on him, Robert slowly opened the folder. Bank statements. Stacks of IOUs. Smartphone transfer histories. Each page told the truth that was about to be revealed. His hands didn't shake. Well, Caitlin. Let's reveal who the truly shameful person is here. Robert's voice was calm yet filled with anger. Standing straight, he stared directly at Caitlin. From his expensive suit's inner pocket, he pulled out the first document, a bank statement for college tuition repayment. Amy's signature was visible beside the amount. Amy covered your college tuition of $120,000. Plus $40,000 for 2 years of repeating classes. Another $15,000 for qualification exam fees. To make these payments, she took night shifts and gave up her vacations. The venue buzzed with murmurs. Caitlin's face turned pale. Her superficial beauty seemed to peel away beneath her makeup. And look at this, Robert held up new documents. The stack of papers was like an indictment listing Caitlin's crimes. Credit card debt of $85,000. Casino gambling debts of $50,000. Living expenses of $25,000. Luxury brand shopping, overseas trips, even spa treatments. Amy paid for all of it. Under the grand crystal chandeliers, Caitlin nearly collapsed. Bridesmaids rushed to support her, but their movements showed hesitation. Her former best friend's eyes now reflected bewilderment. And this wedding? Half the venue fee at $45,000, dress at $12,000, decorations at $8,000. Party favors, commemorative photos, production costs. Amy covered all of this too. She gave up all her savings, wishing for your happiness. Whispers among the guests grew louder. Social elites exchanged glances. Among the upper-class ladies and gentlemen, words like unbelievable circulated. Their gazes now carried traces of pity. Late-night money demands. Emergency calls 2 to 3 times a week. Weekend summons. And persistent demands even during work hours. She prioritized your desires over patients' lives during surgery. You made 10 promises to repay, fulfilled 0. Each time, just empty words, definitely next month. Robert took out his smartphone and displayed the screen. Evidence after evidence projected onto the large screen. Unpaid bills, late-night messages, coercive demands. The chronologically arranged materials vividly illustrated her cunning nature. And this is the worst. Look at these social media posts. While receiving Amy's support, she was secretly slandering her own sister like this. The posts projected onto the large screen. The venue fell silent. The sound of collective gasps was audible. In conversations with friends, the words were even worse, Robert continued. His voice now carried a coldness beyond anger. Criticizing her sister's appearance, insulting her profession, defaming her private life. All while continuing to demand support. I cannot entrust my life to such a despicable sister. Caitlin collapsed in tears. Her figure in the pure white wedding dress now looked pitiful. However, no one could tell if her tears were from genuine remorse or fear of her precarious position. But I had reasons, she suddenly cried out. Words poured forth like a broken dam. I was always compared to her. I could never meet expectations. Mother always. Her voice trembled and broke. Mascara streaked down her cheeks as her expensive makeup crumbled. Amy was perfect. Amy was excellent. Amy was the pride. I was always in the shadow. Nothing but a shadow. I cried at the Math Olympiad Awards ceremony. I ran out of the classroom during the state's Outstanding Student Award announcement. When Harvard Medical School's acceptance letter came, With the emotional outburst, Caitlin's makeup completely fell apart. Even her luxury brand dress could no longer hide her inner ugliness. She looked like a clown stripped of its mask. That's why I needed money. I needed luxury brands. I needed an extravagant lifestyle. Then people would acknowledge me. See me. But the money wasn't enough. I accumulated debt, told lies, betrayed my sister. Her confession became increasingly incoherent. Childhood trauma. Constantly being compared. The pain of failing to meet expectations. Distorted need for recognition. Jealousy and inferiority complex. Vanity and pride. Dependency and aggression. They all erupted in an ugly display. In a corner of the venue, former classmates were recording videos on their phones. Tomorrow, this scene would likely spread across social media. Ironically, a public shame Caitlin feared most was becoming reality. Meanwhile, Amy stood quietly. Still in her server's uniform, listening to her sister's confession. Her eyes showed deep sadness rather than anger. There was also a glimpse of regret as a sister who couldn't protect her sibling. Caitlin, Amy spoke for the first time. Her voice was surprisingly gentle. You know, I never expected anything from you. I just loved you as my sister. There was never any need for comparison. Those words broke down the last wall in Caitlin's heart. She fell to her knees, sobbing loudly. The pure white wedding dress spread across the floor. It looked like scattered snow, or perhaps her shattered vanity. Various reactions swirled through the venue. Some looked at Amy with sympathy. Others viewed Caitlin with contempt. Some were confused and disturbed. And some were even recording the dramatic scene on their smartphones. The wedding, decorated with luxurious ornaments and premium cuisine, was coming to an unexpected end. Caitlin, Robert's voice rang coldly through the venue. This wedding is cancelled. The entire venue stirred at those words. Champagne bubbles popped futilely, and the orchestra's performance stopped mid-piece. Caitlin remained collapsed on the floor, shoulders shaking. As 200 guests showed expressions of confusion and agitation, Robert continued with resolute attitude. What I sought in Caitlin was honesty. However, all I found was a lack of financial sense, absence of gratitude, and betrayal of family. Marriage means entrusting our lives to each other. But I must conclude she is unqualified for this. He briefly looked at Amy and bowed deeply. Tears glistened in the eyes of the man known as J.P. Morgan's brilliant investment banker. Amy, I can't find words to apologize to you. Simply because she was my fiancé's sister, we put you in such a humiliating position. That's my fault too. We trampled on your tolerance and kindness. The collar of his expensive suit trembled slightly. With an expression mixing anger and regret, he turned back to Caitlin. His hand gripping the microphone told the story of his emotions. This isn't just about financial sense. You lack basic morality. Far from showing gratitude to your own sister, you continue to slander her behind her back. I cannot trust such a personality with my life. You trample on others' goodwill and lie easily for your own benefit. That's unacceptable in a life partner. In the venue, staff began moving hurriedly. Security guards were positioned, restricting entry of what appeared to be reporters. Social elite guests were already leaving their seats. Women with luxury brand bags headed toward the exit, whispering gossip in hushed tones. I'll cover all cancellation fees, Robert told the vendors. However, I require submission of all receipts and estimates. Given Caitlin's tendencies, we must consider the possibility of inflated charges. Considering her habits, this verification is necessary. At those words, Caitlin's face grew even paler. The sound of accountants frantically flipping through documents could be heard. The florist began anxiously checking invoices. Minutes later, social media was flooded with news of the wedding's collapse. Videos recording Caitlin's breakdown garnered millions of views. Caitlin's phone kept ringing. Cancellation notices from real estate clients began arriving. We cannot deal with an agent who has lost credibility. Continued relationship with a morally lacking sales representative is impossible. Her annual income was approaching zero. High-rise apartment loan, luxury brand payments, casino debts. Everything was turning against her. Amidst the chaos, Amy slowly began removing her server's uniform. Looking at her reflection in the small dressing room mirror, she reflected on the past days. The time spent desperately supporting her sister after their parents' death. But was it really for her sister's benefit? Wait, big sister. Caitlin cried out. In her bridal white dress, she crawled across the floor, clinging to Amy's feet. Don't abandon me. Please, help me. This time I'll really change. Amy stopped and turned around. Deep fatigue showed in her eyes. She gently but firmly brushed away her sister's hand. Caitlin, that's enough. Continuing to coddle you would be my mistake too. My support became a tool for your destruction. True love sometimes requires firmness. Her voice was quiet but firm. Each word carried years of emotion. I'll always watch over you as your sister. But I won't extend my hand anymore. That's my final expression of love. This isn't punishment, it's a choice to help you become a true adult. With those final words, Amy left the hotel. The spring sunlight gently illuminated her back. She left the uniform neatly folded at reception. Caitlin remained in the venue alone, her makeup ruined, hair disheveled, in her wedding dress. The luxurious decorations and food, the expensive attire, all seemed to symbolize her superficiality. Her former friends left without a backward glance. Days later, an eviction notice appeared on Caitlin's luxury apartment. Her credit cards were suspended one after another, and her bank accounts were seized. The backlash continued on social media. Days of being exposed online as the woman who betrayed her own sister. Former friends cut ties with her one by one. The luxury brand bags she had proudly posted about ended up in pawn shops. Meanwhile, Amy continued her regular work at the hospital. However, she no longer needed to fear late-night phone calls. Freed from the burden of debt repayment, she was gradually rediscovering the joy of focusing on her work as a physician. Her expression showed traces of relief. During night shift breaks, Amy spent more time in the hospital's rooftop garden. The flowers she grew there soothed her heart. And in Amy's desk drawer lay a carefully preserved letter. Written before their parents' memorial photos, it read, "Dad, Mom. I've finally decided to live my own life. Please watch over Caitlin from heaven. She will surely find true happiness. And I too will walk my own path. I believe I can become a better doctor and a better person, learning from these struggles." The spring breeze gently tapped on the hospital windows, as if announcing the start of a new season. Carried on that wind, the sisters' new lives were quietly beginning to unfold. 2 years later, Caitlin was quietly folding uniforms at a coin laundry in suburban Boston. Her cleaning company uniform wasn't expensive, but it was kept clean. Though lacking the glamour of her former designer brands, her expression had regained its serenity. Her phone vibrated. An inexpensive model, but showing signs of careful use. The screen displayed a message from her sister. "Happy birthday, Kate." A small flower emoji followed the brief words. Caitlin smiled. Monthly phone calls and birthday messages, that was now the sisters' comfortable distance. Not too close, not too far. Gradually rebuilding trust while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Debt repayment was still only halfway complete. But she continued steady monthly payments. The cleaning work was challenging, but the humility learned there gradually changed her. "Working hard today too, Ms. Wilson." A senior colleague at the cleaning company called out. Her former haughty attitude had faded, replaced by recognition for her sincere work ethic. During breaks, Caitlin browsed flyers from a small real estate office. Alongside her cleaning job, she had begun studying to regain her real estate license. This time, she wanted to conduct honest business, without exaggerated advertisements or inflated charges. Meanwhile, Amy had been promoted to department head at the hospital. While leading the medical team and mentoring young staff, she also published research papers. The time and money once spent supporting her sister could now be directed toward her own growth. "Good work with the surgery, doctor." Nurses called out to her. Her expression no longer showed its former exhaustion. In her white coat pocket was a birthday card from her sister. Though not elaborately decorated, it contained heartfelt words. Big sister, I'll never forget that day. Your strictness saved me. Amy sometimes thought about her sister in the hospital's rooftop garden. The events at the glamorous wedding venue now felt like distant memories. Yet that experience had definitely helped both of them grow. Dr. Amy, your flowers are beautiful. A colleague commented. What was once just a hobby had become her emotional support. The blooming flowers swayed gently in the wind, as if watching over the sisters' new lives. Sometimes they had meals together. Not at fancy restaurants, but at small family diners. They talked about work and daily life's small events. The former pretense and superficiality were gone. Big sister, I'm moving forward, little by little. Yes, I know. In their brief conversations, a new trust was sprouting. It wasn't a perfect relationship. Sometimes words failed them and awkward silences fell. But now they could accept that imperfection. The past couldn't be erased. The wedding video still remained on social media. However, it had become a starting point for their new lives. From a past full of pretense and superficiality to a grounded present. And toward a better future. Before their parents' memorial photos, the sisters prayed silently. No more need to compare or compete. They could just walk their own paths at their own pace. The spring breeze rustled their hair again, as if announcing the arrival of a new season. As if encouraging their journey forward in life.